Welcome to another episode of Teach Me to Fish, where our purpose is to help leaders better understand what drives people. In today's world, the core of recruiting and retaining talent revolves around leadership, and not just average leadership, but motivated, values-based, inspirational leadership. Our purpose is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories and stacking habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people. Okay, hey, so what I wanted to do today for today's episode is I wanted to talk about how has the last month went. How have some of the things that we said we were going to do over the last, month or going into January and in February, right? How has that gone for us? There's so much going on with our country. There's so much going on with the Army. There's so much happening that's out there right now. And I just wanted to see how has that kind of have you been able to focus? Have we been able to kind of maintain our clarity? Because the biggest thing that affects stress and morale is uncertainty and ambiguity, right? It's something I'm working through right now. Is how do you get more clarity, more focus in you and your organization to decrease the uncertainty, decrease the ambiguity, and when you do that, morale goes up. Stress goes down, and so I choose clarity, right? I choose to be clear. I choose to try to be focused, and doing these stand-ups with you is one of those things that helps me.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's understanding everything that's happening in the present, what's to come in the future, and not getting wrapped up in the noise. Because there's a lot of noise right now. Like you said, there's a lot going on in the country. In January and February, my mind was ebbing and flowing from large-scale ground combat operations and battalion command preparation, and finishing the task at hand, which is my dissertation. And then, thinking about all of that and what leadership really means in these moments, right? So I had some time at Fort Leavenworth to kind of focus in on those things, pre-command preparation, what that means for a looming war. I hate to say looming, but we're on the precipice if you think about what's going on in the world. And then being focused enough to finish the task at hand. And those things for me, I have to sit back and almost compartmentalize so that one doesn't flow into the other, and I can finish what I started, right?
Yeah.
Be where my boots are, as General Beagle says. So yeah, a lot going on, in my world and in the country too.
Yeah. I just got back from Alaska. It's just been go since January. We went there. We ran our exercise with the 11th Airborne Division. Right, Jimmy Howell, a good friend of mine, Colonel Jimmy Howell, was the rotational unit. A good friend of mine, Chris Brawley, was the Op Force Brigade on the other side. Another good friend of ours, Kyle Spade, is the G3 for the 11th. General Hilbert was a senior trainer. So phenomenal people, right, out there, putting this exercise together and executing it over the month of January. So it was absolutely amazing. We did a couple videos that we're going to publish here soon with JPMRC, having 100% figured out what the name of it's going to be, like JPMRC Crucible in the Pacific, Crucible in the Arctic, combination of all of that, and share. Very similar to the way JRTC does it. The videos and what did you learn? How did you prepare? What did you get out of this exercise from a couple brigade commanders? So I'm excited to share all of that stuff here soon.
Yeah. We've been talking. Fort Leavenworth, that the 2 weeks I was there was a great time, a great reunion. I ran into General Lubis. I ran into, Major General Bartholomew's. I ran into General Beagle, Brito, George. I mean, the name and the list goes on, to include peers that I've been serving with. And a lot of listeners to your podcast were out there as well. So that was really cool. But more than anything else, it helped me appreciate how great the people, we're going to talk about this a little bit, the people are in the Army. Because I made a statement to you, and this is a get it off your chest moment for me. This is partially that, is that, the phrase is that the Army doesn't love you, right? Mm-hmm. I think everybody kind of knows that. At some point, you're going to retire, you're going to move on. The Army doesn't love you. But I got to tell you, over those 2 weeks, I really felt that the people really did, right? I had a significant family event where I had to leave Fort Leavenworth prematurely. And the people were phenomenal. I mean, it took about 20 minutes for me to get a flight and another 6 hours to get on that thing to come back home. Nobody questioned it because I did what I was supposed to do, but everyone supported.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone.
Amen.
And I even got emails and text messages 48 hours after I was at home station from colonels that I just met 72 hours prior, checking in.
Yeah.
Right. That has never happened. Well, you really don't appreciate when that happens until it does. And so again, we'll talk about that later, but a great experience for me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more that, as I get older and I've been doing this for a while in the Army, you have a tendency to say like the Army took care of me, or people say the Army screwed me over. And what I'm learning now is it's not the Army, it's not the enterprise, it's the people that are in it.
It's the people.
Right? So when you had a great opportunity presented to you, chances are a person got involved, and chances are somebody helped you along the way. And if you had a bad experience, it wasn't the Army. It was a person. You had a bad experience with a person, with a leader, with a subordinate, something like that. And so I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to work through the stand-up stuff because, to get it off your chest moment is twofold for me. And we don't have to start there, but the people are a big part of that,
Yeah, for sure. So let's jump right in. What's the one thing that you got to get done today or this week?
Yeah, so for me, it's again, it's dissertation. It seems like every time you ask me that, that's what it comes down to. My defense is on the 27th of March, and I got to turn this thing in on 23 February. So I'm about 200 pages right now. So it's just attention to detail, so I can finish this chapter today. That is the one thing I have to do, right? Attention to detail in that chapter.
Yeah. So the one thing I got to get done today, and if you saw my desk right now, I've got lots of narrative maps, lots of brief cards, from Joe McCormick and his team on a lot of different topics. My one thing that I have to do is 100% focus, clarity on my projects, where they're on the schedule, which ones are a lot of people call those, what are your priorities? Prioritize them. Help give guidance, help give some rudder steers on a few of those. So I've got to get clarity on where those projects are and where those fit into my schedule for the next month.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you got going on for the rest of the month?
The rest of the month I'm heading out to Fort Moore for the tactical portion of the pre-command course. So I'm getting my head right with that. We got a great menu of readings today. I'm reading. I got it right here actually. The Why Do Senior Officers Sometimes Fail in Character? The Leaky Character Reservoir, written by Everett Spain and others. And so I'm reading that, especially in this moment, to try to figure out what we need to be focused on when it comes to a sense of duty. So I'm fixing my mind for that. And then my dissertation defense is coming up. So there's a series of questions I have to be prepared to articulate. Why I chose this study, what was the journey over the last 3 years? What did I learn? What are the impacts to the profession, both from a personal and professional perspective? So I'm thinking about that. And then I just need to take and be very deliberate about having deep time to think. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure I preserve setting aside time to do nothing but think. That's really important for me. So those are the three things that are on my mind.
Yeah. The rest of my month, one, execute on the things that I'm staring at right now, right? We learned a lot coming out of Alaska. And so we got that called our Alaska Key Takeaways, and it's taking all the lessons that we learned there, sharing that with the right people from the other combat training centers to the other divisions that we operate, and then the people on my team that didn't 100% get to go to that. On a personal level, I'll travel next week to go to the Kansas City for the Triple Crown Invitational. It's one of the biggest volleyball tournaments that they do in the nation right now. Before they go to the national tournament, only select teams get invited to go to the Triple Crown. Every scout, every college that in the nation that's looking for girls going into and boys going into college and playing volleyball, that's where it'll be. So we'll travel to Kansas City for that for a couple days, for a few days with Evan and her team. come right back. And then a few days later, I'll find myself in Thailand for Cobra Gold. So a little bit smaller than Alaska and Hawaii's rotation. But nonetheless, JPMRC, we go to Thailand, we incorporate ourselves into the Cobra Gold exercise and ultimately help them understand how to run a CTC, how to build a CTC, how to do force on force training and be good OCs and such. So that's what I'll be going over there for. That's the rest of my month.
That's busy.
Yeah. Yep, no doubt. Big decisions. What big decisions you got coming up?
Big decision from a family has to do with the transition into battalion command. We made a decision for me to get an apartment down there to facilitate consistency. So, being deliberate about quality time, having those conversations right now, and finances, right? Because sometimes we tend not to think about that, but being laser focused on a budget to make sure we don't overextend, so we can give the same sort of quality of life to the family while we're, I guess, quasi separated, if you want to call it that. But that way, I'm going to have a lot of buckets to fill with respect to time. So we're having conversations about those decisions, how to be deliberate with quality time and what that looks like. Is that 5 minutes of being present, or is it like 8 hours of sitting in a cell phone on a couch next to the spouse, right? So those are really, really big decisions that we're working through right now.
I can only imagine what the office space is going to look like at that. A combination of what you got at your office, at the battalion, at Red Devils, right? And
that's
like
right.
What your office is going to look like there versus what it's going to look like, in your cave, if you will, at an apartment right down the street.
Be bourbon and books.
Yeah, I like how you guys have kind of worked through that, no doubt. Yeah.
What about you?
For big decisions, I got a couple of little ones. I call them little because I got to make those kind of in the near future. We're constantly reshaping the team and bringing new talented folks and people from across the Army to build out JPMRC's operations group, right? And so I'll be doing a lot of interviews over the next few weeks, and I got to put the right people in the right duty positions over the next 4 or 5 months. Everybody's got summer transitions, but we have to put the right people in the right positions so that this organization can kind of continue to grow and continue to execute the way that it's been executing, for the last year or so. So I got to shape a few of those right there. And ultimately, my big decision is almost every day, how do I share what we're learning, what we're doing, what we want to be doing, how are we improving, where do we need help? Constantly, the command message, the themes, what are we about, what is our purpose, and where do we need help, right? I got to communicate that clearly to the right different audiences. Some of those audiences are the people in our organization. Some of those audiences are the divisions and the people that come to the Combat Training Center and operate. Mm-hmm. Some of those, another audience is our higher headquarters. Another audience is the Combat Training Center at Fort Leavenworth, right? All of that. Everyone requires some of the same information, right? It just needs to be communicated differently and in different means. And so that is the big decision that I go in every week is what message do we need to communicate this week, this month, and who to, and what's the best method to communicate that message to those folks. That's mine.
Yeah, as you're talking, I keep thinking about all the advice that you give me is frequent. And I've heard it over and over again, is that over communication is an asset. Like if you feel like you're saying something, too much, you're probably right at the level that you need to be communicating it. That's what you always told me. Yep. And I heard it over and over and over again at the pre-command course. So definitely thinking about that too, especially as you communicate, what you got going on.
Yeah. And, I got this stack of books, right, that I read, and I'm always reading new stuff, but I've got this stack of books that I reread every time it's time to do that. So if it's time to communicate, you've got to be staring at Joe McCormick's books, I think, right? And I'm staring at them, and it's like how to be brief, be brilliant, be gone, right? How to use his narrative maps to shape the challenge, the opportunity, the how, what, when, and why, and then now your message can be a little bit more concise and clear when you're communicating to people. His book on first one was brief, the second one was noise, right? How to communicate in a world where everybody is distracted. And so if you're using some form of social media, it has to be quick. It has to be quick and to the point, because they're not going to last more than 7 seconds, right? And so I'm rereading those things, and every time I reread them or I go through the folded pages with the notes, I pull a little bit of something different each time, and I apply it. Somebody said to me a while ago, they said, you got to reread doctrine, every time you move into the next duty position, because you're going to see it through the lens of the duty position that you're in now, not when you were a lieutenant or not when you were a captain, but now as the cog for a CTC, I have to go back and look at some of that doctrine, look at some of these things and say, I'm going to see them through a totally different lens now that I've been doing it for a hot minute.
Yeah, something you used to do that stuck with me, and I've been thinking about this over the last couple of days or weeks, really, is that being brief, be brilliant, be gone. As a method, what does the enemy look like, right? You know where I'm going with this. What is my frontline trace, and then what's the next big move? But you can really communicate. That's not just tactical. You can communicate almost anything, because the enemy could be time, the enemy could be space. It could be a physical enemy, right? You could be your own enemy. And so I'm thinking about that. So if ever I got a brief, shout out to, retired General Gerard, the last podcast he did was great. But I think about, at one point I had to brief him and I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. I was just all over the place. And so now I'm thinking, if I got to talk to anybody, I'm going to frame whatever I got to say in those 3 points. So, what does the enemy look like for the team, for my team? What is our frontline trace, right, with respect to my adjacent units and my higher headquarters, whoever that might apply to? And then, what is the next big move? Whether that's tactical, operational, or strategic, or personal, right, or professional. I think those 3 ways of communicating is helpful. And I've been thinking about that, trying to cement it, for consistency.
No doubt. I must have said that 1,000 times during this last rotation. Whenever
That's
someone was questioning what do I say when I get on the radio? What do I say if I only get 1 minute with my commander? What do I say at the commander's update brief, right? And I would say, well, this is how I did it. This is how I think about it. And inside that frontline trace, what's your combat power? What do you have out front? Where are they? And again, back to life. What is your combat power? Like, what resources do you have right now? Who do you have on your team that can help you? When you talk about your frontline trace, where are you? Be where your boots are. Be where your feet is, right now. Okay. So usually we spend the most amount of time in big decisions or get it off your chest. But what's on your mind? Get it off your chest.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's twofold. We're going through a transition in the country. A lot of people are hesitant to say anything about it because, it is a very tense and sensitive time. I want to read something real quick. It's a very short thing. I saw this today on Facebook, which I need to get off because there's a lot of noise. But this was an anonymous post from a junior captain who read this with respect to the noise that's on Facebook. You probably have seen this. It says, quote, "As I prepare for my field grade years, standing at the base of what seems to be a very tall and steep mountain, I personally know I find my purpose in sheltering and promoting the success of all soldiers, regardless of race. I wish I could tell the many 05s and 06 leaders who are fighting this internal battle between the current atmosphere of the country and their own moral compass that we junior leaders still see you. Your value isn't in just who you lead, but how you lead. We will always need your voices to speak on our behalf in rooms that we don't have access to and invite us to the tables where we wouldn't otherwise have a seat. It may not mean much, but stay encouraged. Your proteges are watching you, whether you realize it or not." What a great post, right? And I don't know who posted that, but what a great post to get us back to thinking about what our sense of duty really is. At the tactical level, I serve the people of my battalion, and our mission is to kill our nation's enemies, right, and break things. And so that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do really well. We're going to focus on that as I serve the battalion, and we serve the American people. And that is what I'm laser focused on. Now, the other side of that is what to do when you understand perhaps what you're seeing because you're educated, and how far do you lean into that? Oh, in terms of your sense of duty, right? And I'm gonna do another podcast about this, but one of my get off the chest moments is that as leaders, you got to be really thoughtful and deliberate about how you compartmentalize the things that you personally believe, and then what the Army ethics says you have a responsibility to do. Mm. Right, because we swear oath to support and defend the Constitution, and if at any point that doesn't resonate, the option to resign is always there, right? But until you reach that point, you got a sense of duty to your people, the people you lead, as that young captain said.
Yeah.
And deeds, not words, right? Let your actions speak, and be the change you want to see, despite how you feel about the current environment. Because you know what, I work for a four-bird colonel. Right. And that colonel works for a general officer. But I don't have no issue with DC because it's out of my control, for example. Yeah. So I'm thinking really hard about duty. I think this is a great leadership moment for our country, for folks to take an internal check to see, okay, what can I do that's in my control, right? And block out the noise that will prevent me from being in those rooms that Captain talked about. So that's the one aspect, and I'll just put that there. The other has to do with the Army's people, like you talked about, and how great the Army's people are. Generally speaking, we like to get wrapped up in the bureaucracy of the institution. And you're right, the institution and bureaucracy doesn't love you because the institution and the bureaucracy is disembodied. They can't love you. But the people, you got to be a little vulnerable, but the people, they may not love you, but they like you.
Yeah.
And they trust you to watch your back. So, but all of this takes some reflection. It takes some deep thinking about where you see the world professionally and personally, and then how much are you gonna give to that profession? Who are the people? People, right? So I'm thinking hard about those things. Trying not to let my emotion override my reason, right? And just be tempered. Mm-hmm. Like Plato would say.
Yeah. I think when you've taken so much time to reflect, and you've taken so much time to do deep work and study and reflect on who you are and kind of grow, that kind of comes naturally, right? To do the right thing, so for me, my get it off my chest over the last month, I've got to go into the cave out into Alaska, into the absolute middle of nowhere. Right. There's not a lot of cell phone connectivity. Everything is slower. Rule number 2, everything is slower in the Arctic. And that is true in every way, shape, or form, to include studying, to include sending out notes, to social media, everything, right, slows down when you get up into the Arctic. And so when it gave me a chance to kind of reflect and think over my entirety of my career, is that I love what I do. But I love the people that I do it with more. And I love like doing it for the people that were out there as a part of this exercise. That's who we were doing it for. When I spoke to those people, and I said, I got a son in the Army and I got a daughter at West Point, right? And I think about every single one of those people is somebody's son or daughter. And I'm like, I'm doing it for you. I'm doing my responsibilities for you so that this exercise can be the best exercise that you've ever been a part of. Right. Mm-hmm. And I've thought about that. I love what I do, but I love the people that I do it with more than the job itself. Right. Or the enterprise. I love it for those people, to get after it. And I love it so much. I love doing it with them to do the right thing. Are we doing the right things when we're out there with them? I'm constantly thinking about it. And then of the things that we choose to do, by God, we got to do it right. Because that quote that you just talked about, I feel it every day of where if you do anything right today, demonstrate for people like what the right way to wear your uniform, the right way to act in a meeting, the right way to listen to people, the right way to take bad news when it comes into you. Every one of those things is an opportunity for you to just demonstrate what the right way to do it is. And if you demonstrate the wrong way, they're also learning. if you make mistakes, they're also learning. They say, hey, I just made a huge mistake. That was a terrible way of reacting to that bad news. I'm sorry. You can apologize just because you're in charge. You could absolutely apologize.
Yeah.
You can absolutely change your mind. Hey, this is what I thought I was going to do. I think we need to modify that. I've listened to a few more people. You're constantly on watch. They're watching how we operate. One more. When you said the seat at the table, and he said in that quote, right? You have a seat at the table. I think every day you choose which tables to sit at, right? You choose how to get yourself out there. If there's an opportunity for you to be at that table and you choose to be at it and say nothing, or you choose to be at that table and you come prepared with something to say, something, you be courageous and you tell somebody, a senior leader, hey, this is what I think. This is the direction I think we should go or modify, right? You have an obligation, I feel, to be at those tables, to put yourself in that and speak on behalf of those captains and majors and all the way down to the privates that are out there. That's what's on my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important. A leader has a responsibility to speak. Now, also staying silent is saying something too, right? So you got to measure that too. But I keep thinking about this, given everything that's going on with the transition in the country, with the continued emphasis on large scale ground combat operations and how we train for the calamity that will involve. I think a leader, or at least the institution, cannot expect its subordinates to not have an opinion about everything that's going on. So the question is, how do you engage in I call it critical discourse, how you engage in productive conversation to provide purpose, direction, and motivation as a leader. And that takes courage, right? That takes introspection, and it takes a reevaluation of the Army's ethic, those values, and a realignment with why you do what you do. I keep coming back to that question always. But it's a lot. It asks of you a lot, but that's what leaders do. That's our responsibility. And so I'm thinking about how to do that productively, because there's folks out there are, confused, and they're listening to their own voices, and they have something to say and they don't know how to say it without getting emotional about it and saying something that won't put them at that table. Right.
Yeah. No doubt.
So yeah, it's a tenuous time.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot what we were going through, about 8 years ago when we were trying to work our ways. I've lost track of the years, right? Where we were trying to figure things out, and we came together in civilian clothes and we talked to all of our people about what was on their mind and what they were thinking. I feel like we're very similar, right? You can't just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, that's right. And there's ways to have conversations about, difference and the things that are happening without being insubordinate. I think you got to do that. Otherwise, the detriment will play out on the battlefield, and that's not the place for it.
Yeah, no doubt. When it's time to go to the field and train, and it's time to be more lethal, and it's time to be war fighters. The people that are focused and are not distracted are the ones that are going to go and train like there's a war coming. They're going to be the ones that go out there and become pros at whatever responsibilities that they got out there. Their ability to call for fire and do these things. They're going to be absolute pros because they're locked in when it's time to go and do the training.
Yeah, I'll tell you, all of these, the one thing that kind of bothers me is, and I'm not going to get too much into it, but there's no substitute for treating people with dignity and respect. We're going to do that anyway.
Yeah.
We don't need institutional acronyms and all these labels and these titles, these politicized words to frame something that we should already do, which is treat people with dignity and respect. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's easy. And so for me, I'm laser focused on that and just enable that Red Devil Battalion to kill whatever enemy stands in our way whenever we call to do so. Yeah. That's it.
That's it. That's it. And when you do that, I think you don't just make, your daily, when you show up to work, you don't just make that great. You make your life great because you walk away at the end of the day, whatever time it might be, and you feel good about the day's work you put in and how ready your unit is and how ready the leaders and in your organization are for whatever is put in front of us, and we'll be ready. And that's the greatest deterrence in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'll tell you one last thing before you go. I know you gotta get out of here is, I spoke, I probably shouldn't say this, but I spoke to a senior leader at West Point yesterday. And what they said moved me from the perspective of everything that's happening in our country. And the what's the word he used? Ethos. He used responsibility and duty, and leadership. Right, in a time of leadership, one must demonstrate what the right thing to do is. Lead by deeds, not by words. Right. And I was very encouraged by that. Use the word virtue. That was the word, virtue. And so I'll go into this weekend and the next week thinking about what virtue really means. And for folks out there, you pick up Marcus Aurelius's Meditations will help you get toward that. But that's what I'm thinking about. So I was encouraged talking to that person. I really was, given everything that's happening. So I'll leave that there.
Yeah, I think if you stick with things like your ethos, like duty, like the reasons we chose to serve in the first place and the reason we're serving right now, and virtues, and you stick with your values and your purpose, and you stick to character, competence, commitment, the belief that there is a brighter future. If those are the things that Matt LeClaire values the most, and you stick to them, you can be confident going into the day, as long as you're sticking with those. And I'm gonna head out here and go do a stand up with my team. Coach them through that for the rest to get us ready for the rest of the week. Finish strong, and then go into next week and this next month. I appreciate it, brother.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you, sir.
All right, brother. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye. Thanks for listening today. I hope we sparked some thoughts about the people that have inspired you to be who you are today. I hope you share some of your thoughts, and better yet, demonstrate them for the people in your life. Our pursuit is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories stacked on top of each other, building like compound interest. Keep stacking these positive habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people. Please share your comments at the links in the show notes, and DM us at Teach Me to Fish podcast on Instagram or Facebook. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind.